We are using trigonometry to find angles. Okay, as always, we should read the question carefully and make sure everything is marked on our diagram before we start. All right, in this triangle OPQ, yep, the measure of Q is 90, marked already with the 90-degree symbol. PQ is 3.6 feet. Yep, everything's in terms of feet, it looks like. OP is 4.3. That's the hypotenuse. Yep. And then we want to find the measure of angle O. All right, so we're looking for what's this angle O, to the nearest tenth of a degree. Okay, so whenever we do these, it's really important that we should mark what our reference angle is. Even though they have the little x to the degree, it's good to mark it also. All right, so whenever you see trigonometry, it's good to have your SOHCAHTOA out, so we need to know what we're talking about a little bit easier. All right, so then let's mark our triangle. So opposite our angle of reference, or across, is the opposite side. The longest side, or opposite the right angle, is the hypotenuse. And then the adjacent is next to it. And then my style is I cross out adjacent because that's not, we're not using any of that information to help us with this. So then opposite and hypotenuse. Which of these three trig functions have opposite and hypotenuse in it? Well, there's opposite and there's hypotenuse, and S stands for sine. So sine of, they're calling it x, so let's call it what they call it. Sine of x degrees is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. All right, so we have to use what they gave us to see which trig function it is. All right, so we'll just plug things in. The opposite side is 3.6. The hypotenuse is 4.3. Okay, and now we have sine of x degrees is equal to 3.6 over 4.3. All right, to get x by itself, we have to get rid of sine. The opposite of sine is sine inverse. All right, so that's a little bit new for us, sine inverse. And then what you do to one side, you do to the other. So let me go ahead and give myself, I'll just write it right here. So sine inverse, there's a couple different ways that we write it. So it looks like a little -1 exponent is one of the ways on sine of x degrees is equal to what you do to one side, you do to the other side. And 3.6 over 4.3. All right, so when you're doing this on the calculator, you want to make sure that you calculate the 3.6 divided by 4.3 first, then do the sine inverse on it. All right, so now we have x is equal to, and then sine inverse of 3.6 divided by 4.3. All right. Now, before I calculate this, I just want to make sure that, let me get that clear. It's always good to note that sine inverse is the same thing as arc sine. So many times they will use these interchangeably. So these two are the same thing, and you want to keep reminding yourself that arc sine and sine inverse mean exactly the same thing. It's just a different way of writing it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's look at our calculator. So if you have your own, that's fine. I'm going to be using Desmos, the scientific calculator. It's at the bottom. Okay. Now, so the order that we do things is 3.6 divided by 4.3. 3.6 divided by 4.3. All right, and I've stored that answer by hitting enter. Now, it's real important, one of the reasons why I wanted to show this, that we're in terms of degrees or radians here. So this is degrees. I remember x had the little degree on it. We're not dealing with pi, or they would say if we were. So we are in degree mode. And then we want arc sine or sine inverse, and there it is right there, sine inverse of answer. Where's the answer key? There it is right there. Bam. And that's our answer. So our final answer, this is equal to 56.8465 ... All right. And they want to the nearest tenth of a degree. So this is approximately equal to 56 point. Here's the 10th spot. I look at this one. It's 5. It's below 5. So that means everything else drops off. 56.8 is the final answer. 56.8. And let's just degrees. So remember, we are in degree mode. Let me just confirm with everything. And everything looks right. All right. So let's go ahead and compare our answer with theirs. Check. Let's get rid of all my writing. Okay, so they have SOHCAHTOA also. They've labeled their triangle. They kind of highlight it just like I do. And then they write in the pieces, 3.6 divided by 4.3. There's your sine of the angle that we're looking at. They called it angle O. I called it angle X. You do arc sine on both sides. That undoes the sine function. Now our angle is by itself. And then arc sine of the value is exactly what we have here. Type into the calculator, round to the nearest degree. So everything is exactly the same. Yes. Take a look at the next one, see if it's any different. See what the different problem types are. Using cosine, sine, or tangent. So all of these are going to be exactly the same type of problem. Just make sure, like I said, you're in degree mode on your calculator and you're getting used to the idea of, so if we just look at a different one, so if this were tangent, it's not, but if it were, this is cosine, but if it were tangent, remember, tan inverse is going to be equal to what? Arc tan. Cosine inverse, undoing cosine, is going to be equal to what, do you think? Arc cosine. All right, so the little inverse just means that you have that prefix of arc in front of it when we undo it. So these mean exactly the same thing, and I already showed the sign.